Today on The Daily Charge, more on Google. We're looking at the Pixelbook Go, the death of Google VR, and the lack of 5G on the Pixel 4.
Welcome to The Daily Charge. It's Wednesday, October 16th. I'm Roger Chang, and with me are Scott Stein and Jessica Dolacourt. We're still recapping Made by Google. Now, we couldn't fit everything Google announced into yesterday's show, so we're doubling down, and fortunately, both of you were at the show yesterday. First off, we want to talk about Pixel 4. One of the key features missing, at least for me, is 5G, because I'm obsessed about 5G. Now, that wasn't necessarily a surprise, but there were some reports that a 5G variant was popping up. Jess, how big of a deal is it that 5G wasn't even mentioned at this event?
I think in terms of practicality, it's not a huge deal. You and I actually suggest to people to hold off on buying a 5G phone. This isn't the right time. I think it's going to be a different story a year from now, where every phone that matters will have at least a 5G variant, if not come out only in 5G. And that's because the networks are still growing, the chips are still being evolved, and the designs are too. The cost of getting a 5G phone is going to be really high because you're paying for expensive hardware, and the network just isn't available yet. So if there is going to be a surcharge, that's going to be expensive too. So I would say when it comes to practicality for 2019, 5G isn't important.
Yeah.
For 2020, that might be a different story.
Yeah, it is noteworthy that Apple and Google are really the only companies right now not talking about 5G. Everyone else is like 5G, 5G, 5G. One of the other aspects I wrote about yesterday was the fact that Verizon isn't the exclusive partner for the Pixel anymore. This thing will be out in every major U.S. carrier. How big of a deal is that, Jess?
That is a huge deal. One of the biggest, I think, things that hurt the Pixel 3 last year in terms of sales, and Google even acknowledged that sales were not great, was the fact that people thought that the Pixel 3 was only available through Verizon, when in fact you could also buy it through Google's site. That just wasn't communicated well. It's crystal clear from the Pixel 3a and from the Pixel 4 now that you can walk into any carrier store, which we know is where the vast majority of people buy their phones, and be able to pick it up and look at it alongside another competitor device.
For sure. And the Pixel 3a definitely did extremely well, doubling sales in the second quarter. And Sundar
Sounds
Pichai,
like that wasn't hard, to be honest.
And Sundar Pichai, basically called out the fact that extra distribution helped a lot. All right, moving on to another product announced, the Pixelbook Go. It's a bit pricey at $649. Scott, you had some hands-on time with it.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
So, it's a Chromebook. It's a very nice Chromebook, and it kind of feels much more like a laptop. That's not new in the world of Chromebooks. And so what Google's trying to do here is kind of a strange betweener and a little bit of backtracking, because the Pixelbook that came out in 2017 was the super premium Chromebook, and it's great, but it was like, $1,000 range. And then they tried to move into tablet territory, and they've been moving into that last year with the Pixel Slate, which was the Chrome tablet. But they've completely pulled back from that and from tablets as a whole for Google. And so now the Pixelbook Go is trying to be a more affordable Pixelbook without the tablet, but it's not more affordable than most of the Chromebooks that you would get in any store.
Which is more like the $200 or $300 range.
$200 or $300, yeah. And that's what most people are used to paying for these. I think Google is always in the position of trying to further the premium element and to push into the laptop zone of Chromebooks. And I think Chromebooks are great, but there's a point at which how much would you pay?
Right.
And they're staying out of that competition with OEMs for the $300.
All right, and lastly, Daydream, Google's phone VR headset, which was supposed to be their way of jump-starting the whole category, is officially dead. So what happened?
Requiem for the Daydream. There we go. There with that headline I was going to use. So Daydream, it's like the death of mobile phone VR at this point. Between this and Samsung Gear VR, which Oculus gave a eulogy to at their developer conference. Samsung never talked about it. They just kind of let it die without talking about it. But Google has admitted that Daydream you will still get apps, but it's not supported on the phones, and they're not going to sell the headset anymore. That's after back at Google I/O, Google had said that they're not currently pursuing any Oculus Quest-like future standalone VR stuff right now. I think what we're looking at is, sure, maybe you could say VR is dead, but it's not dead. It's still around. But the idea of it for the average consumer as a hook is dead.
Right.
The idea of it to sell a phone is dead. And we're looking at things like computer vision, AR, things that you could move through space, which is like the hand tracking or what AR does. And those headsets didn't do any of that. So I think that it's also hard to keep having every phone work in these new adapters.
Yes.
And it just wasn't moving. People weren't interested. It wasn't selling units.
I think I have like 4 or 5 of these like VR headsets in my closet collecting dust right now.
Hey, I have a new headline for you, by the way.
Yeah.
Google is no longer a Daydream believer.
That could be like,
Ooh.
maybe that's the deck. That's the social. That's really
That is
inside.
a good snappy deck.
I
though,
like
actually.
that though. That's I got okay. I'm gonna mark
This is
that
how the
down.
sausage is made.
But
So-
it's sad because there are some really cool experiences. But that's it.
Yes. So, as is tradition, we'll now turn the spotlight onto you, all in the audience. Are you into the budget-friendly Pixelbook Go? Will the lack of 5G sway your decision about the Pixel 4? And we don't have to talk about 5G as well. There's also the radar technique. There's all the stuff about Pixel 4. We've got phone experts here. So let us know in the chat or tweet anytime, day or night. We live to serve. BBG?
Can we just make this show nothing but trying to come up with snappy headlines? Because that's way more fun than talking
that's
about
a whole
5G.
nother
That
show.
should be a section.
We should start a channel for that,
We
Brian.
should. Yeah.
It's like an improv game. Let's do it.
Yes.
Requiem for a Daydream just about put me on my ass here today. That was
By the way, that was a Dan Ackerman. I'm
It
give him credit for
was.
that,
It was.
and
It
I
was
love
great.
it.
Well
and
done.
it came out.
Well done,
it'll
Dan.
be a headline or a piece. So if someone else wants to write that story at the same time, we'll just know that we're going to have the same headline. But
forewarning everybody, this show's going to a dark place.
oh yeah, it's not going to end like that movie, but hopefully.
I don't really hope it can in any possible way, Scott. Okay.
Let's not talk. I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about that movie anymore. Yeah.
Let's talk questions.
We're getting to questions. Okay. Did anyone notice during the video presentation for Google that one of their engineers is named Eric McIntosh?
No.
I don't think I noticed that.
I don't think that
I must
that
have been too busy
completely-
tweeting.
Yeah.
Shout out to Eagle-Eyed Timothy Dew, as
well,
always.
well
That's
done.
pretty excellent.
Well done.
Interesting.
Okay. Now
Is there an
on to-
Apple engineer named PC?
Do they call him Tim
or
Apple for
Android?
It
short?
didn't even work as a joke. Or Android, yeah.
Yeah, Android
I don't know.
probably
It was like
would've worked a
mixing
little better.
metaphors.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, let's go down to a real deep, dark path. Is there a Mac engineer named Hewlett Packard? That works a little bit better,
There
right?
you go.
I'm stretching
We're
on
getting
that
there. We're getting.
By the way,
few
Eric,
more reps
Eric
and we'll be there.
McIntosh is the director of engineering. That doesn't tell me much, but just director of engineering. They must have 50,000 directors of engineering, but that's what he does. I don't even know what he talks.
Is his nickname Mac?
Eric Apple.
It's got
Power Mac.
Eric Mac? Mac.
We have an Eric Mac.
We do.
We do.
Well, either way, Eric McIntosh, we're very proud of you. Congratulations on all your success. For consumers, did anyone really complain about the speed of 4G/LTE? It's the cellular coverage that is more important than the speed itself. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
I feel that way every day on New Jersey Transit, where I can't get a signal. I couldn't get it on AT&T, and I can't get it on Verizon now that I've switched to Verizon.
So here's the 5G promise is that 4G is going to become faster and more robust alongside 5G. So, and that's just because of all the work that's being done on the towers. Yes, it's the
And
high
also-
tide
exactly
raising all
the
ships.
idea-
raising all boats,
The
raising all
idea
ships.
is also like some of that traffic gets moved onto 5G, which frees up some capacity on 4G.
Right, exactly. So, they
would
are
be
tied
great.
together as 5G expands, as those networks expand. And to be honest, there's a point that the experts say, like the real experts, the networking experts, where you won't really be able to tell the difference between 4G and 5G. In real life, there's an academic threshold.
Yep.
That would be very technical. But in real life, the whole idea is everything gets a little bit better. But yeah, dead zones suck.
Yes, and that's it. I mean,
And I hate
I was
them.
thinking that exact same thing riding in on the Long Island Railroad today. Like my track basically has dead zones throughout the entire thing, so I can't stream anything.
That sounds a lot like my commute.
Yeah. So as much as and I have both Verizon and T-Mobile, they're both terrible. Like I think it's like a universal problem.
It's actually just you. They're targeting you.
Could be.
I'd like to ride with a network engineer and show them, but they already know that. They would just
No,
be
they
like,
know. That's the
would
thing.
be
They
like,
know. I've
I
had
know. They'd be
discussions
like, yes,
with
we know this.
T-Mobile engineers about that, and they acknowledge there are these issues
like-
here and there. There's always like the blanket. Yeah, we're constantly working on it, but
But I'm like, but I want to stream everything on my train, and I start complaining, and I sound like
You
You
sound
guys
like
spoiled.
that's
stream.
the-
I'm like
Right.
publishing stories.
I just want to check messages as well. Like I would love to. Yeah, I would love to just
yes,
get like
or be on
an
Slack.
email.
Slack actually doesn't work so well if you don't have a decent connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all of that does not work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now that we've got everything and its brother out there that needs to be online always, even what about apps and games? Like, all I want to do is burn time and not pay attention to the smelly guy next to me on the train, and I can't even do that because every app needs to be online all the time. I hate that. I hate that so much right now.
Although Apple Arcade, aren't those games supposed
Apple
to be
Arcade's
offline? You can
offline.
go
There's some offline games.
Yeah.
Nintendo's
and
games aren't offline.
I have a Galaxy, so
Oh,
They're
yeah.
offline games.
Wait, don't
on
you have a
Android?
Switch?
I do have a Switch. I'm just complaining because that's what I do. And
Okay.
Alfred's not here.
Fine.
I would
Just play
recommend
your
some offline
Switch
games
and be
for
happy.
you.
Okay. Oh, by the way, how's everybody doing in Horrible Goose Game? I'm really killing it. I haven't.
I can't
haven't
get
played
past-
it yet. I haven't.
I'm terrible. I can't get past the first level. What is wrong with me? I feel like have not understood the game. I am so
I think
stumped.
the point of the game is not to try to like accomplish goals.
I really am just trying to move stuff to the picnic blanket, and I just feel like he just keeps moving stuff back, and I'm like, oh, fine. And then I left. I was like, I will experience it again.
I like that
Someday.
I made a off the cuff joke, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, I am also playing that." Like everybody in the world is playing Goose Game right now.
Not me.
You're not? I thought you just said you were.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're
I was
just
playing a
aware
lot of
it.
Link's
Scott
Awakening,
is.
and I
Scott is.
finished Link's Awakening, and I feel
And you're struggling with Goose Game?
I don't know. I feel I feel like I need to just understand, let myself into the game mentally.
Yeah, I've
Become one
I've
with the
talked
goose.
enough with enough people who've played the game now that I feel like I know enough to play it, and talk about it.
Yeah.
But I actually haven't touched it at all.
My kids are the geese. I feel like I'm already in that game.
Wait, what?
I mean, like,
Because
just
if you're the
our-
geese in the game and then your kids are the geese, that's a really weird metaphor.
that's parenthood.
That's Scott.
Yeah,
The kids move stuff around. You get upset. Wah, 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 wah.
Oh, so you're
they
like,
don't listen to what you're saying.
You're the NPC in the game.
I'm the farmer guy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
you're
yeah.
not the
Where are
goose.
my keys? Why did this thing get dragged over here? Blah blah blah. And they're like, and they do.
Kids are
That's
constantly-
basically.
Your kids are just constantly throwing your hat in the lake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that happen at some point? I haven't even
Yes.
gotten
Is
to
that
it.
what your kids do?
Spoilers.
I did drag various things into the lake. I just basically gave up on the meaning of anything and just started dragging things around.
Wow.
They just had
I think this game has broken Scott.
it
Crushed
came
his
at a
soul.
rough time with the breaking of my personality.
It's okay.
itself.
It's
I
okay.
can honestly
Sorry.
picture Scott's kids running around the house with like crayons on the wall, just going honk honk.
I really represent them as monsters in this, but
I'm sure they're wonderful.
they're much nicer than geese. They're so. I would rather have you kids than geese. I
True.
love
A
you.
goose bit my
That
finger
is-
once when I was a kid.
Oh, see, that's rough.
Oh yeah, my kids don't bite me at all.
This took a
Yeah,
weird
I
turn.
can't say that about my kids. So
Really?
Oh no.
Well, you're at a yeah. That's a different.
All right, we're
I
in
don't
a
know
weird
your kids.
spot. Let's
We've
get,
really gone way off.
I'm happy
way
to
off
talk
course.
about motion sense, though.
Yes.
And
So we want
radar.
to talk about radar
Let's
stuff.
get some
if you
more
want to talk about the Pixel 4
Goose
specifically and
radar.
not geese, then please.
Goose
ask-
children.
Yeah, we could talk solely.
well, I've
That's
got a
the radar.
perfect segue for Jess. Caleb wants to know what is radar going to be for besides those hand gestures.
Right. Because actually, and I think this is a common misconception, the radar is not actually at all for doing the work of unlocking your phone.
Right.
So there's a shortcut. Basically, it will sense your presence, it will sense you reaching for the phone, and then prepare the phone
Right. Yeah.
for you to unlock it. So it wakes it up so that you can then either lean over or pick it up and do the unlocking. They didn't talk about their unlocking technology at all, but it's actually much more similar to the iPhone. It does use a dot projector
Yeah, dot
Okay,
projector
okay.
and using that system.
to create a depth map.
Yeah, Soli is interesting. I talked with the ATAP team, which made Soli.
And then I'll actually get back to the
Yeah,
question.
go ahead, yeah.
No, I want to hear this.
Yeah. And seeing Soli demos going way back and what that group wanted. That same group, in terms of the tech of it, also worked on Jacquard, which is the smart jacket technology. It's basically creating fabric touch sensors. The reason I'm saying that is because that group was trying to come up with a similar idea for ambient gestures and interaction. The same people working on it, but the idea is that Jacquard was in trying to find ways to have surfaces do simple gestures, and Soli was the idea of doing it with radar, understanding air gestures. And the technology is advanced enough that original demos were showing it on watches and speakers to do things like turning a virtual dial, maybe car dashboards. There's a lot of gestures you could do, but then the limit is like, how do you know you're triggering the wrong one?
Right.
You don't get vibrating feedback
Yeah,
because
there's
it's
a
in the
There's
air.
the
There's-
LG G8
Yeah.
thing.
We were talking
here.
about that
the
yesterday.
camera.
But yeah, that
It was
has
the
that like
magic
stupid
trick.
It
claw.
was the most awkward thing, and I gave you a shout out yesterday because of that. Because like we were in the demo for the G8. Scott figured it out because he's kind of like a magician. Not kind of. He's
No,
a magician.
actually
Yeah, because sleight of hand
amazing.
skills. It's like learning a
his
sleight of hand effect.
skills. Whereas I was like
Very
struggling
specific.
like an idiot. Like okay, like moving my hand. Nothing was working. And it was
So
just an
that's,
awkward
I think that's
experience.
why Google's not doing that. They've got a very limited
Yeah.
sort of like gesture
So like swiping?
vocabulary, if
Right.
you want to call it that, which they actually call it. And part of that, I think, is because they need to make sure that it is actually going to work because they've watched to see what the other kinds of motion controls do, and they're bad. But one of the reasons that the other motion controls are so clunky is because they're using the camera sensor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is using radar, which has a different range of field, and it's like it responds differently because it is sensing you in a different way, not just looking at you.
So
but Google wants to make sure that it gets the basics down.
Yeah,
so,
so-
look,
so-
you guys have you guys tried this yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it faster? Is it better than what we saw with the G8?
Certain
Yes.
things are better. For example, so this is actually answering the question, and I have a list here. So the one that they did that is sort of like the most immediately understandable is swiping your hand in a direction, but quite decisively to advance tracks. Right now, it doesn't seem like it's connected to the gallery, but we've seen gestures for the photo gallery as well. But I guess like if you're driving, it makes sense to do a motion control. I never know why I want to use my hand to advance pictures in a gallery. That seems gimmicky. They used a YouTube Music app. You can also swipe to dismiss an incoming phone call, an alarm, or a timer, which I think actually is very useful. And you can imagine that extending beyond a phone, also into the Nest Home, Nest Mini stuff.
Or his watch.
Right?
Or a watch.
Or the watch,
Yeah.
right? But you can see that. Imagine you're in the kitchen and the alarm goes off. You can say stop. Or what if you just did like, right?
Right.
Right.
I don't know.
Or doing that combined with Google Assistant, which is something that the ATAP team was saying that that sort of stuff, coming up with a gesture plus a voice command, is kind of the next level for where Google Assistant wants to go as a platform. And they're just beginning to explore that in, like, say, a Jacquard with like a gesture thing. They haven't really knitted it together, but but that group that's doing that is exactly, it's about like not losing people in the and they were saying like the possibilities are greater, but the question is how much do they really unleash it. Even Jacquard stuff is starting to get to assigning gestures to do things. You can assign on the Jacquard jacket three different types of gestures, but with any sort of action. But you can assign gestures on the Pixel 4.
So my favorite that I think is actually the most useful for the Pixel 4, it kind of goes along the same lines of you reaching for your phone and an understanding that you're reaching. When the noise goes off, like an alarm or a timer, and you reach for the phone, it senses the motion and it senses your presence, and it actually dials down the sound. So you can dismiss to make it go away, or you can just reach for it and we'll get a little quieter.
Okay.
So then you would reach and then dismiss.
All right.
But it's not bugging you as much in the meantime,
Right.
so you don't get as angry.
And it's cool that it
So
anticipates.
those are sort of the big ones. You can turn them all individually off. And of course, the last one is, of course, it senses your presence when you come to the phone, so it wakes up. And it senses your presence when you leave, so it can conserve battery by, turning the screen off when you move away.
Right.
It's not fully powering down your phone or powering
But
it
can
back on.
it? You can't determine whether or not it's you versus someone else.
Correct.
randomly.
It's looking for blobs. It's not looking for
Okay.
people.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's not using a depth projection sensor at all, right?
No.
This is just
but it
radar.
can eventually recognize objects, and like you said, but it's a more like it's a cruder map than what depth
And that's by
projection would
design
do.
for privacy
Right,
as well.
right.
Yeah.
And everything is stored on device, all that data. It's not going up to Google servers. So I think right now they're being very cautious
Yeah.
about introducing it. And, if they're smart, they want to do things that are actually truly going to be useful for people.
I think it's super interesting as a replacement for the sort of stuff that right now we're seeing a lot of gestures on camera-based systems and across the board. And that introduces, you have a camera, what about privacy? But something like Solely, you can incorporate and not have to have a camera.
Yeah.
And so that goes to like where you could have it in a Nest, you could have it in a smart home, so you don't have to say, oh, great, now I have cameras studded everywhere, what am I going to do? Theoretically, Solely could start
I can
to
imagine
build.
for security as
Yeah.
well. You've
So it's
got
very
the eyes
intriguing.
plus,
It's unclear how
radar.
that plays out in a home and what the range would really be.
sure.
And it is confusing on the Pixel because it's like, the messaging.
But that's really small. That is a very, very small sensor.
Yeah. And then people would say, is it the camera? It's not. But I love that it's automatic because the one thing using an iPhone with Face ID is exactly that in order to begin the unlocking process, you got to touch the screen. You got to initiate it more. And this is what I demoed in that room too, is you pick it up and it just logs you in, which is a little creepy,
It's
but
fast.
cool. And it's fast and it just starts whether you touch it or not.
All I'm hearing when you
Okay.
guys are talking is I cannot point my phone at a car and tell how fast it's going. So that's
Maybe down the line.
The new LiDAR sensor
Yeah.
in the Pixel 15.
Brian, what else do we got?
All right, we got a short amount of time and a lot of really, really good questions. Do you think this new recorder app is going to be a godsend for you as journalists?
Yes.
Yes.
Although, there's already Otter, which is a pretty decent app now
It's
that
good.
does transcription, live transcription. You can share it.
Google is so good at understanding people and what
That
they
is true.
say. They've
That
put
is true.
so much work into it.
We'll see how it
The
works.
offline.
We haven't had a chance to use it, right? Or is it
Not
is
in
it
real life.
Yeah.
No.
So
Yeah.
No.
I'll be excited. I hope it comes to iOS as well. I don't know if it will, but
Well, I hope. I mean, the offline stuff is great. That's the thing that excites me, just in case of like you have any connectivity
I use both
issues.
phones, but I also have an iPhone, so I'd love to have that capability there too. But Otter is pretty decent.
Well, the funny thing is, I saw this like on Twitter yesterday, and somebody was reminding me that like dictation on the iPhone can work in airplane mode if you're doing it in a Notes app. And I was like, what? And I turned it off, and I was like, oh yeah, it does work, but it's not being used. You know, nobody had tapped into that for doing something like transcribing in voice recording,
Yep.
and so like that's a lot more useful. I'm sure there's reasons for all use cases, but I just want I want to use that right now. Please.
Hey, Roger, will you go back to 4G if 5G coverage is spotty?
I mean, I will have to because there's no real option. But yes,
Well,
it's not like I don't think it's the
it fails
misperception.
down.
Yeah, it's there's
a
a
handoff.
misperception. It's not like once you go to 5G, you've committed to 5G. To Jessica's point, you fall back to 4G when there isn't any. So it's not like I have a choice because 5G isn't practically anywhere. It's in a few places, but not many places. So
It's at an intersection.
yeah.
Ricky wants to know if the Pixel 4 is coming to India or not.
Ooh, I don't know. I'm assuming it is.
I think
prior
that
models?
the Pixel 4 is probably going to sell most places where the Pixel 3 and 3A sell.
Yeah. Okay.
Question, what is the big deal about 60 gigahertz millimeter wave? It's not approved in India. It's not approved for commercial use in India, whereas everyone in the world is approved. Tell us a little bit more about 60 gigahertz.
Wow. All right. I'm assuming they're talking about spectrum. For a
Yep.
second there, I thought you were talking about the megahertz refresh rate, but
Right.
And then for a second, I also thought we were talking about the radar frequency
Yeah, no,
on
so-
the Pixel.
There's so many frequencies
See,
now.
we told you the audience is smarter than we are.
That's
I
true.
mean, always that's always the case.
We assume that.
In terms of 60
At least
gigahertz,
smarter than Scott. Just kidding, Scott.
wow.
Again, I assume that. I assume that.
Well,
I
60
love
gigahertz, like all super high millimeter wave spectrum, has the inherent properties of it being super fast. It's a big pipe, really, really short distance, but again, huge pipe. I'm not sure about why or whether or not it's being approved for the India government, but I'm not entirely sure if it's like approved for use here in the U.S. yet, or like who's freeing up that spectrum. But just in terms of its properties, like you'd want it, the carriers would want it because it gives you a really fat pipe for those kind of like Wi-Fi type hotspot or Wi-Fi hotspot type experiences. So there's an inherent advantage of using that. I think Verizon, I think they're using 28 right now, as I recall, and there's a couple of other ones. I don't know if 60, anything that high up is being
Well,
used.
so I went and spent a day with Qualcomm, and they definitely have a phasing out plan for the way that spectrum is going to open up and the way that it's going to work. So right now they really do have that cap right about where you said.
Yeah.
There's just not the possibility, there's not the spectrum, and I don't even know, frankly, if the networks can handle it at this point.
Right now, no.
Right.
But,
So
yeah.
so they are definitely, everybody in the industry, everybody who's involved with 5G is exploring what happens at even higher frequencies.
Yep. Yep.
and
Brian wants to
lower.
know if he misheard or is Google relaxing their policies on works with Nest, as in not locking out third party.
Oh, unfortunately, I don't know if there's
I'm
anyone
not a
here
Nest
on the,
expert,
yeah,
unfortunately.
expert
here.
Our
either.
Nest expert was here yesterday.
I know.
Molly. So
You've stumped
unfortunately,
me, and I needed to
but we
pay
can
more
get back
attention
to you
it.
on Twitter.
Yeah.
Got it. We got just a few minutes left, so let's try to tackle 3 to 4 more questions. It won't happen. Do you see the Pixelbook Go being a solid competitor for the iPad, especially since Chromebooks are far more popular in schools these days?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think not at that price. I mean, that's the problem is that, like, using it, I was like, oh, this feels great. It feels like a laptop. But, you know, between the backtracking on what Chrome had aspired to and the fact that so many other devices that are Chromebooks already go there, Chrome has already been there. So it's not the Pixelbook Go. It's that other Chromebooks can make that impact. Schools have really non-existent budgets. So if you're talking about like elementary school, forget it. They're lucky to get anything cobbled together. But universities, I don't know. The iPad, I think what impresses me, and I just put the review of the 10.2 up, is that at least they kind of need to make their own because there are no OEMs, but they are still at least trying to get through to some sort of $300, $400 range, which while expensive, Google isn't even making a product that slides in there with that. I think they are pretty apples to oranges, pun not intended, but like, you're
on fire today, Scott.
Yeah. Oh God, just making them happen. So that's my answer there. But I do love that the Chromebook is thinking about mobile and how, like, I had this thought the other day about like, it's beyond regular PCs and that you assume that people come from phones and are now getting a laptop, and it integrates a lot better, I think, than say a Mac or Windows PC does, assuming you have a phone ecosystem, if that makes any sense.
Are you talking about always on?
Always on, and the fact that like the way it integrates with like your Android phone or just your Google Play or just your cloud services. I think it's assuming that like you're doing a lot of stuff on your phone and then also here's a laptop. I still feel like Apple is still trying to knit that together, where it's like you have a Mac over here and then you have iOS over here.
Yeah.
And then Windows is different. But
I still feel like Apple
sense.
does a much better job with handoff than Samsung,
That's
Google,
a good point.
and Microsoft.
That's a good
They're
point.
all trying, but nobody's solved this yet.
They do.
But you
yeah.
do see,
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of always on, you do see that, Qualcomm's chips that power phones
Yeah.
are also in some, hybrids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's definitely an area where
Yeah.
computing could be going.
It's weird because
We want to fix this. We want it to happen.
Yeah, for all that stuff out there, the Pixelbook Go is not representing any of that. And so, like, that's what's weird. It's using Intel chips, and it's like, it's still kind of built like a PC, and they didn't take this opportunity to push any new ideas. It feels like a pause.
With the name Pixelbook Go, I kind of just hearing the name initially, I just assumed that it would have some sort of a mobile chip to it, that there would be some sort of component.
That's the other thing. There's no cellular component. A lot of
Right.
people online were talking about like, well, that's already a deal breaker for them.
Right. Which is funny because I had Dan
It's like
Ackerman
quieter
on.
keys
I've
and
had
things
Dan
like
Ackerman
that.
on to talk about laptops with those kinds of like Qualcomm power chips.
Yeah.
And he says generally the market really hasn't responded to it at all. Like these are sort of, they're kind of out there, but the interest level has been really low.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the answer. We'll have a review of the Pixelbook Go when the time comes, but don't expect anything really surprising there at all. I mean, it is about like
it's a very nice Chromebook.
Yeah, you're talking about things like how it types and battery life, not unimportant things, but like that's not pushing the future.
Right. And not necessarily justifying double the price of a standard Chromebook.
No,
Yeah.
Unless you really, really, really wanted a Pixelbook and was like, that's a little too expensive. I wanted to save a couple $100. Okay. Which, there is that. The Pixelbook is very nice.
Okay.
Pushing.
Oh, a trade-in
for
program
smart
for
home?
devices. That would be very smart.
That would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a really great idea. I feel like right now people either give them away to other people or maybe try to sell them for not very much.
Yeah, or
it
use
would
them in
be-
other rooms.
Yeah,
or
that
things.
would solve the kind of switching issue that we were talking about yesterday. That once you've like an Echo, you're kind of committed to like the Amazon ecosystem. But like if
No, you're
Google had
not.
a trade-in program, I mean, if you've got yes,
You're not.
if you've got
Not if you buy a couple $50.
that's not true. If you have,
minis.
if I have 4 Echoes, I'm not switching over to Google Home.
Right.
I don't
But
need
if you
that.
have
Right,
one,
right.
you would.
No, but that's the thing. If it starts with one, and then you're like, oh, maybe we'll get another one for this other room,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you're committed. But if Google came in and said, we'll give you $20 for that,
Or you want to upgrade. I'm just thinking about like Dot with Clock, for example, right?
Right.
You want to upgrade. It's like, okay, there could be some sort of deal where you, bring in 4 and get 1 for free.
right there, you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap things up today, do we feel like Google might be drifting towards becoming more of a hardware company and like a 70-30 split?
No, sorry.
I
no.
mean, I think that's already.
No.
I wouldn't say that it's more so than it was
Yeah.
last year or
Right.
2 years ago.
Keep in mind, all this hardware stuff, they don't make that much money off of any of this. They make still a vast majority of their money selling ads and on search. The search business is still their core business. It drives everything else. And so their priorities are all about, data, getting data. And these devices are a means to get that data.
And ecosystem as well. You using the services that you use and then being locked into Google online services. But I would have to say that what Google has been pushing, in addition to all these other things, is Google Assistant. It wants to own that. It's been putting a lot of effort behind that. And it is connecting Google Assistant to everything. And I don't just mean hardware. I mean connecting, to the database, for example. The database that finds you things, the database that listens really well and can supply those answers. So I think like search and Google Assistant go hand in hand, but then it's digging deeper into your life and your calendar and your this and your that and finding all that information. That's where the privacy concerns come from. But this is what Google wants to own, and I think Google is doing a very good job owning it.
I think we all agree with you, Jess. All right, on our way out the door, if you could choose, would you have chosen a Pixel 4 with the same exact features and price of the iPhone Pro without solely, or the current Pixel with its features and price?
So a little bit cheaper, but no motion sense.
Bingo.
Okay. I don't think motion sense is a really big deal. That's not a game changer on the device.
Yeah.
I think you would choose the Pixel 4 if you like the things that phone brings and Android. I think the question that I would want to know if I were going to be buying them, because I'm fairly platform agnostic, I see things that I like and don't like about either of them. Google Assistant is a really big one for me. The fact that these phones get the security updates really quickly and they're the first to get anything new. I've got to say search is a really big deal. Search and Google Assistant. I want to see the camera test side by side. That is what I'm excited about. I think that phone cameras are so good. Does it really matter? No, you're still going to get really good photos, but I'm just curious on an academic level, which one is technically superior. And that's obviously something we'll find out after testing.
Yes.
Yeah, I still feel like the Pixel 3 stands strong as an alternative here.
The 3 or the 4?
The 3.
Oh, okay.
As an alternative, in terms of like, well, do you look at that model instead? And like there are advances here, but again, I wouldn't want to give up solely, because it sounds like, from what I've seen, that it's kind of part of the handshake for the new camera login system for the facial identification. It begins the handshake, and so.
But you could have it without it. You're still going to get the face unlock.
You could, but then you might have two phones that kind of do the process a little bit differently. Instead of just picking it up and you're in, you'd pick it up and sort of begin this like tap to go in.
Same as the iPhone.
I know, but then I don't like the idea that like two phones that would exist simultaneously would have slightly different handshake processes for something as important as a login. I feel like
it's going to keep Scott up at night.
I know.
Well, no, because I feel like they didn't. I feel like it's next to the camera for a reason. I feel like Google saw that as part of that system, and it is at this moment kind of maybe a little more integrated. And it might be, I don't know what I'd feel like if it was pulled out. I don't know.
Okay, so the camera is on the left. I thought that the Soli chip was on the right.
Yeah, but they're all right next to each other. Like it's one system.
It's on the other side of the speaker.
Yeah, but on the top.
It's on the top.
That's what I mean. But it's one, just like with
it's
the
like
iPhone, you have
horizontal row. It's
right.
Part
You
of
just
the
have a whole
system.
bunch of components. Yeah, it's one of the components. Yeah, I mean it's not. Yeah, but I think that it's hard to tell at this point, right? This event, like how much, if you remove that, what the facial identification system would really feel like without that handshake.
I mean, theoretically, it would be slower, right?
It would be like the iPhone, but we don't know how much slower it would be. Yeah, we don't know. I don't know.
And we never will.
Interesting.
I'd rather have it. I'd rather have it.
Okay, great.
Well, we'll probably get that with the 4A, right? I'm assuming when the 4A comes a few months later, there won't be any kind of radar chip there, right?
That's a good point.
I would
a lot of the bells and
assume,
whistles,
right?
Yeah.
So we'll find out in like April or May.
Opposite the Pixel Buds.
Yeah. There you go.
Great show, everybody. So many questions we couldn't quite get to today. We'll try to tackle some more. Feel free to hit us up on Twitter. We'll see you again tomorrow. Roger, take us home.
All right. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell to join us weekday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern right here on YouTube, as well as Periscope and CNET.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the audio podcast. That's multiple podcasts. So you can take us on the go. For the Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang. This is Scott Stein. This is Jessica Dolcourt. Thanks for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.